Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Judiciary Committee hearing in advance of the special session. My name is Carl Rhodes. I'm chair of the committee. This meeting and YouTube live stream event is for the Judiciary Committee's 10 a.m. agenda on 2 governor's appointees to the Hawaii Supreme Court. The other members of the Judiciary Committee are Vice Chair Gabbard, who on cue is arriving, Senator Elefante, Senator Sanguineventura, who's not here yet, and Senator Kawa. This hearing is being streamed live on YouTube. You can find links to viewing options for all Senate hearings and meetings on the live and on-demand video page of the legislature's website. If you're interested in seeing the written testimony, you can go to the legislature's website at www.capitol.hawaii.gov. In the unlikely event that we have to interrupt this hearing due to major technical difficulties, the committee will reconvene to discuss any outstanding business this afternoon at 2 o'clock in this room 016, and there'll be a video conference and a public notice will be posted. I'll be reading a list of people who submitted written testimony, some of whom are present this morning in person or via Zoom. We will conclude the testimony for each appointee with the Hawaii State Bar Association president and then call up the appointee. For the committee's practice, it's my rule. 2 minutes for testifiers except for the appointees, which we will give more latitude to. For remote testifiers, all testifier audio will be muted and video disabled until it's your turn to testify. If there are temporary technical glitches during your turn to testify, we'll try to come back to you, but time constraints may mean that we have to skip you if we can't sort it out soon enough. And sometimes the closed captioning doesn't accurately transcribe the names, so we apologize for that in advance. Okay, first up today we have Governor's Message number 1, Lisa M. Ginoza, submitting for consideration and confirmation as Associate Justice of the Hawaii Supreme Court for a term to expire in 10 years. Judge Ginoza was nominated to replace Associate Justice Michael Wilson. First on that testifier list is Blake Oshiro, Senior Advisor, Office of Governor. Good morning.
Morning, Chair, Senators. Blake Oshiro, Senior Advisor for the Governor, here to offer our testimony in strong support of the nominee for today. You have our written testimony, so I thought I'd just kind of give you some very brief background on the process. So Governor received the list of 6 names from the Judicial Selection Commission, and he really took that seriously and to heart because he realized that it is rare that you get 2 nominations at the same time, and so he really wanted to go through a thorough process. He interviewed all of the candidates. He took some time after that interview to think about it, but at the end of the day, there were 2 names that really rose above for him. One of them being Lisa Ginoza. Was highly impressed by her years of civil litigation at McCorson and also her first deputy AG role, as well as the years she served on the Intermediate Court of Appeals. So he found her record to be extremely impeccable, and we hope that you find the same and will support her nomination. I'll be available for any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is retired Judge Daniel Foley, Intermediate Court of Appeals. Oh, there you are. I'm sorry. I'm right by you. Good morning.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Gabbard, Senator Elefante. As you know, I served on the Intermediate Court of Appeals with Judge Ginoza. I followed her work since I retired from the bench 6 years ago. I know her work well. I also regard her as a friend. She would be a great addition to the Hawaii Supreme Court. She has an outstanding legal mind, is a wonderful and efficient writer, works well with others, and has unquestioned integrity. It is also important that she values the role of the court as a fair and impartial arbiter of disputes. It should apply the Constitution, statutes, and rules as written and intended, with appropriate deference to the other branches of government and lower tribunals. She has demonstrated this as an ICA judge. I would hope the committee would confirm her. I will be available, Mr. Chairman, if there are any questions.
Thank you very much. Next is Chief Judge retired Craig Nakamura. Good morning. I'm sorry, of the Intermediate Court of Appeals, I believe. Yes.
Chair Rhodes, Vice Chair Gabbard, members of the committee. Thank you for this opportunity to testify in strong and complete support for the nomination of Chief Judge Lisa Ginoza as the Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. Judge Ginoza and I worked together for more than 7 years as judges on the Intermediate Court of Appeals. I can attest that she's an outstanding judge, a great colleague, and just a wonderful person, someone who would be a tremendous addition to our Hawaii Supreme Court. Given Judge Ginoza's softball background, I thought I'd make a baseball analogy. In baseball, a superstar is commonly referred to as a five-tool player, someone who can field, throw, run, hit for power. Judge Ginoza is a five-tool appellate judge. She can think, comprehend, reason, explain, and explain with clarity. ICA judges work closely together to tackle a very challenging caseload. And in that situation, you get to know your colleagues very well. I know that Judge Ginoza is a person of the highest character, integrity, diligence, and just a great person. I know that she will do her very best to advance the cause of justice and to enhance the development of the law for the benefit of our state. I've been a longtime proponent of Hawaii's merit-based judicial selection process. Judge Ginoza is a merit selection in every sense of that term. I urge this committee and the Senate to vote in favor of her nomination and to consent to her appointment as Associate Justice of our Supreme Court. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next is Martha Torney, a former Executive Director of the Office of Youth Services. Good morning.
Good morning. Chair Rhodes, Vice Chair Gabbard, thank you very much for allowing me to testify. My name is Martha Torney, and my experience with Judge Ginoza precedes her appointment to the court and provides me with the opportunity to share the incredible support she provided as the state of Hawaii responded to a settlement agreement with the U.S. Department of Justice over conditions at the Hawaii Youth Correctional Facility. Between 2006 and 2010, I worked very closely with Judge Ginoza during my tenure as Executive Director of the Office of Youth Services. It was Judge Ginoza who negotiated the terms of the settlement agreement with DOJ, and her continued involvement ensured a deep understanding of what was expected from the state to resolve the serious issues that led to the suit filed on behalf of the wards. Most important was her ability to forge a collaborative relationship with the DOJ attorneys based on mutual trust while not abandoning her responsibilities to the state of Hawaii. Clearly, Judge Ginoza was well acquainted with the constitutional issues that resulted in the DOJ lawsuit and represented the state of Hawaii well. But what sticks with me was her ability to grasp how these issues impacted the daily operations of the youth facility and understanding of what was required of all involved to resolve these. Well respected by the facility staff, she aptly conveyed how complying with the terms of the memorandum of agreement would not only benefit the incarcerated youth, but also improve working conditions. This tact helped to win over staff and garner the willingness to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Perhaps Judge Ginoza's best attribute was her even temper and ability to remain calm under tremendous pressure. I urge that you approve her nomination. Thank you.
Next, we have Zachary Morris, Deputy Legal Director for the Alliance for Justice Online, I believe. Yep, there you are. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Chair Rhodes, Vice Chair Gabbard, members of the committee. Again, Zachary Morris, Deputy Legal Director at Alliance for Justice, a national association representing over 150 public interest and civil rights organizations. Since 1979, AFJ has been a leader in advocating for a fair and independent judiciary that preserves access to the courts. AFJ offers comments regarding the importance of ensuring that the Supreme Court reflects the diversity of the populations it serves, both demographically and professionally, given our perspective on state Supreme Courts throughout the country. Nationwide, nearly 2 out of every 5 justices on our state Supreme Courts have a prosecutorial background. Meanwhile, only about 1 out of every 10 has a background as a public defender. Out of 345 state Supreme Court justices nationwide, fewer than 25 have a background in civil rights, and barely 3% have backgrounds in civil rights law outside of government practice. The perspectives of attorneys from public interest backgrounds, with experience ranging across public defense, civil rights, legal aid, labor law, reproductive justice, and more, bring in valuable experience that strengthens our courts. It is significant that we have 1 former public defender on the court, and there is no shortage of eminently talented attorneys in the state who are well equipped to continue adding further professional diversity to the court. In particular, issues of environmental law are as urgent as ever in Hawaii and will only continue to grow more pressing, yet attorneys with environmental law backgrounds are close to fully absent on our state Supreme Courts. Our justice system is founded on the belief that truth is born of diverse perspectives. This extends to demographic diversity in addition to professional diversity. As the single most demographically diverse state population in the country, the makeup of the Supreme Court should reflect that. Hawaii deserves true diversity on its courts, and today is an important opportunity to continue moving forward toward that goal. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. That is all the testifiers I have who have signed up to be in person, with the exception of the Hawaii State Bar Association, or on Zoom. Is anyone else on Zoom or here personally who would like to testify? Come on up. Can you tell us your name, please?
My name is Jill Nunokawa. Happy Aloha Friday, everyone. I did send it to Jesse folks, so you should have my written testimony.
Okay.
I'm not going to read it to you. I'm in absolute support of Chief Judge Lisa M. Ginoza. I've had an opportunity to observe Lisa for 45 plus years. You're going to hear a lot of people testify to what a brilliant mind she has and how fair she is. Her character is indisputable. She has been consistent since she's been a player at Kailua High School all the way through her time at Oregon State and then at the William Shaw Richardson School of Law, where I've known Lisa. We both played on the Ete Bowl team, but equally important, I've watched her career. And I want to say a few things about character because it's so important. Merit matters. And Lisa's not in any privileges pocket. Lisa is a commoner. She's a makainana from Kailua area that cares about her community and knows that every decision she makes impacts the entire state of Hawaii. She has a young daughter. She understands that these cases that will come before the Supreme Court in the next decade will shape our future for many generations to come. She takes that extremely seriously, not just because she has children, but because she is born and raised of this aloha ina. She is a person that cares deeply about community. Notwithstanding her being a valedictorian at Kailua High School and everything else, the process is critical. And I thank this body for being part of that process. But it's important to restore the public trust in government officials and our processes, especially now. Lisa Ginoza is that person to be on the Hawaii Supreme Court. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to testify in person? Come on up. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, my name is Terry Revere, and I'm an attorney in town. I first met Ms. Ginoza. She was a friend of one of my friends from law school. I was an opposing counsel on her on several cases in the 90s. And, I think a true judge of character is, what people are doing when no one's really paying that much attention. My boss at the time, who will go nameless, some people would say it was very difficult as a litigator. Lisa handled him very professionally with patience, excellent writer. She's been performing super well as a judge. So I'd heartily recommend her. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to testify in person here? Hang on just a second. Are you moving seats or are you wanting to testify? You're just, okay, you're moving seats. All right. The remainder of the testifiers were all in support. Altogether, there was 45 in support, 0 opposition, and 2 comments. So members, for those who have testified already, any questions for any of them? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and move on to Hawaii State Bar Association. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Rhodes, Vice Chair Gabbard, members of the committee. My name is Rhonda Griswold. I'm president of the Hawaii State Bar Association. For the most part, I want to rely on our written testimony where we clearly have found that Chief Judge Lisa Ginoza is qualified to serve as an Associate Justice of the Hawaii Supreme Court. She met all of our criteria where we look at integrity, diligence, legal knowledge and ability, professional experience, temperament, financial responsibility, public service. She clearly has the ability to fulfill the responsibilities of the role. I do want to point out one minor error in our written testimony. We had noted that she had served 12 years as a first Deputy Attorney General for the state of Hawaii. In fact, she only served 5.5 years. I don't think it affects her abilities or our recommendation at all, but we submitted our testimony in support of her nomination.
Okay, thank you. Members, questions for President Griswold? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this point, the appointee, if you can come forward, Chief Judge, for your opening statement.
Chair Rhodes, Vice Chair Gabbard, Senator Awa, Senator Elefante, good morning to each of you. I'm very grateful to be here this morning and to be considered for the position of Associate Justice on the Hawaii Supreme Court. It is quite a privilege to even be considered, and being here today means that one has been through quite a vigorous process. So another good reason to be thankful to be here today. And when I think about the process, I think about all those people who are involved all along the way. We submitted applications quite some time ago, but I wanted to thank and acknowledge all those folks who are part of this merit selection process. Really, the process, it is a great process. We are very lucky to have this process in Hawaii, but it is only as good as the people who are a part of it. And so I want to, acknowledge and thank all of those folks. And first, of course, is the members and the staff at the Judicial Selection Commission, the JSC. They review all of the applicants for the vacancies, and obviously not just for these positions, but for all of the vacancies in the judiciary. And they do just an incredible amount of work as volunteers for the commission. So I thank them very much. Also, my sincere thanks to Governor Josh Green, who received a very strong list of candidates from the JSC and who did a just really thorough and thoughtful review of all of the candidates. And I really appreciate his confidence in nominating me to this high court. And then, of course, to you and your colleagues at the Senate who have undertaken the confirmation part of the process. I've had a wonderful opportunity to meet with so many of you and your colleagues, and it really is a testament to how seriously the senators take this role. And I just really enjoyed and learned a lot from each of those meetings. So I want to thank each of you for that. Now, this committee is considering filling two vacancies on the Hawaii Supreme Court. So I'd also like to briefly take a moment to acknowledge and thank the two justices who retired and served so long in the judiciary. And first is Justice Mike Wilson, and I understand that I'm being nominated to fill his spot, which perhaps is apt because Justice Wilson is a Kailua High School graduate. I'm not sure how many people knew that, but he is a proud surf rider himself, and I think it's appropriate that I'm being nominated to fill his position. He was on the circuit court for well over a decade and then served on the Supreme Court for about 9 years. And then there's Justice Paula Nakayama, who also served on the circuit court, but served 30 years on the Hawaii Supreme Court. And I think that is a record that perhaps will never be broken. And it's not just the time that she spent there, but it's just the manner and the ability and the wonderful opinions that she wrote while she was there. And I would like to acknowledge that Justice Nakayama is here today, and I'd like to thank her for her presence and for all of her contributions to the judiciary over the years. I want to say that no one comes to this point without many blessings in their life, and for me, it's an amazing, loving, strong, supportive family. So I'd like to introduce my life partner of over 30 years, Brenda Tanaka. She refused to sit in the front row, so she's right there in the second row. And I wouldn't be able to do really anything of the kind that I've engaged in without Brenda's support. So I appreciate her so much, and thank you, Brenda, for everything. that you do. We have a daughter, a 10-year-old daughter, who of course is in school today. And, you know, she just brought so much joy to our life. And I was talking to her today about the hearing, and she made sure to tell me that the one thing she wanted me to say about her was that she makes us happy. So for the record, she makes us happy. And then my father, Rogers, who I believe is watching on the stream, and my sister, Laura. So I thank my family and my extended family, far too many to mention, for all of their support. So you each have my resume, and you know, I won't go point by point over it, but what I'd like to do is sort of fill in the personal story, my personal story around those events that are on the page. And I'll start basically with, you know, I'm Yonsei. I'm fourth generation. I'm the fourth generation, part of the fourth generation of my family in Hawaii. My great-grandparents immigrated from Okinawa in the early 1900s to Maui, which is where my family got its start in Hawaii. And we're plantation workers. You know, my great-grandfather worked at Haleakala Dairy for a period of time, and they had 9 children. My grandmother was the eldest of their 9 children. And so, you know, the children all, you know, worked in various things, plantation work primarily, but my grandmother was a housekeeper as soon as she could start working, doing those type of jobs. And she's the one who moved from Maui to Oahu when she was about 18. And she was a housekeeper here in Hawaii, and she also took in laundry. So just incredibly hard work. And she raised my dad and my auntie for a long period of time, basically as a single mother. So I just want to acknowledge and appreciate, you know, my grandmother, who really is kind of like my life role model. I'm named after her. She helped raise us. And so that's the start of our family. With Maui, came to Oahu. We lost our mom when we were very young. I have a sister and a brother. My mom passed away when I was 8 years old, and my dad, you know, raised us, and he did a fantastic job. But my grandmother, his mom, came and lived with us, and so she's the one too that helped raise us throughout our lives. So 2 very, very, you know, strong role models in my life. My grandmother, my mom, and I should actually say 3. My dad is just a steadfast source of strength in our family. And actually, I have to credit him for my legal career, because he's the one who wanted to be an attorney. I knew that growing up, and he couldn't go to law school. He had a young family he had to raise, so he went to work, and he supported us in a very solid way. But I think his dream was always in the back of my mind, and that's how I think decided, you know, down the line to become an attorney. I'm very lucky to have been raised in Kailua, the village of Kailua, I would like to say, because, you know, with the situation in my family, although we had wonderful support within the family, I also really our family relied on that village out there. You know, we played a lot of sports growing up. And so all of my friends' parents, my aunties, my uncles, you know, the coaches, they truly were part of helping to raise us up. And so I want to acknowledge all of the support that we got along the way from all of them. So you saw I went to Kailua High School, you know, University of Hawaii, and I want to mention that, you know, I recognize fully that I am a beneficiary of Title IX. I am just on the right side, age-wise, to have benefited from Title IX. There are so many people I know that came just a handful of years before me who never had all of those opportunities, you know, for athletics and the opportunities in college that I did. So when I got to Kailua High School in '78, most of those sports programs had just started. And so I completely appreciate the role that Title IX has played in my life, and the ability that I've had to experience a lot of things. So after Kailua High School, I got to go to Oregon State and play up there. UH didn't have a softball team, It makes me feel old to say that, but at that time, they didn't have a softball team. They started it after I got to Oregon State, and I went to Oregon State mainly because I got an exchange program, and I got to pay UH in-state tuition for 1 year, which back then was $500, amazingly. But anyway, got to play at Oregon State and experience the competition, and play softball all up and down the West Coast. So that was just an amazing opportunity. And while there, I think the thought of going to law school really took hold. I really credit, one of my professors there who I think she really has no idea how much she impacted me, but she talked to me about law school and I decided to apply. And there are only 2 places that I applied to, but UH was the main place that I wanted to be. I wanted to come home. I always wanted to come home. So when I got accepted into the UH Law School, it was really like hitting the lottery to me. And I just am so thankful for all of those many people who years before had, fought for creating the law school here in Hawaii. And my story is, very similar to many other graduates of that law school who probably wouldn't have had a chance to go to law school except for the fact that we had that law school here in Hawaii. And I'm ever grateful for that. It creates incredibly strong bonds that are carried on into the profession throughout our careers. As Joe mentioned, it also has very rich traditions, unique, I think, throughout the country in terms of etebo, for example, which has been, I think, being played for 35, perhaps close to 40 years now. But one of the key things I learned at that law school, which is why it's so important that we have a law school in Hawaii, is that they do focus on Hawaii values, and they do focus on environmental law and the things that are so important to us here. And the other important thing that I really feel like I learned there is that although we all seek as attorneys to excel in the substance of the law, the thing that I take away from my time at UH is that civility and respect for others is really the true foundations for excelling in the profession of the law. I think they do an excellent job there of instilling that. And I see that in the law clerks that we hire at the ICA currently that come out of Richardson Law School. So I hope that always will be the case. I think the bar here in Hawaii is very lucky to have that ingrained in the students as they are coming through law school there. So after law school, I had the opportunity to clerk for a wonderful judge, Samuel P. King, at the U.S. District Court here in Hawaii. And I'm very thankful for that opportunity in the sense that, well, working with Judge King is, you couldn't have a better start to your legal career, honestly. But he also was the only federal judge at that time that would hire a law clerk from the Richardson Law School. The law school hadn't been around for that long at that period, but he had 2 law clerk positions and he reserved one for a Richardson graduate. And, by my lucky stars, I was the one who was picked from my class, and I'm very thankful for that opportunity. One of the things that was really interesting about that is he got to sit throughout the country. So he would go to the mainland and do trials, and we used to get to go with him. And it was really interesting to experience that. The other part of it is that he got to sit by designation on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And so that was my first real experience, working on real life appellate cases. And it was fascinating. And I think really, kind of set the seed for me and really wanting to do appellate work. After working with Judge King, I had the wonderful opportunity to be at the McCorston firm for 14 plus years. And, just was surrounded by excellent attorneys, hardworking attorneys and staff. It really taught me the practice of law. It taught me how to be a litigator. It taught me how to be in court at all levels, to do arbitrations, do mediations, and to meet all the time requirements that are necessary for being a good attorney. So I thank all of the folks that I worked with there, and really appreciate what I learned in terms of being a quality attorney and always putting out quality work. So when I was there, I got to, one of my partners was Mark Bennett, who I think perhaps most of you know. And we worked there for a number of years, did trials together. And then Mark left to become the Attorney General for the state of Hawaii. And I didn't see him for 2 years. He was busy, I was busy, and out of the blue, he called me one evening. And back then, there was a restaurant called Sunset Grill at Restaurant Row. And he said, "Hey, Lisa, meet me at Sunset Grill," you know, and it was late. We were both working late. And I said, "Okay, I'll meet you down there." Nice to talk to you, by the way. I haven't talked to him in so long. So I went down there, and, you know, Mark, he doesn't do anything slow. He just, you know, he's a quick thinker. He's a quick mover. And he immediately said, I want you to come be my first deputy at the Attorney General's office. And it's not something that I had really, that's not a place I had necessarily thought about. I had looked at the U.S. Attorney's Office, perhaps other public service sector areas, but I knew that I immediately wanted to do that. I knew I wanted to join him at the Department of the Attorney General, because what an amazing opportunity. So I was able to have my partners there at McCorston, you know, were able to cover my cases, and probably in a month, maybe less, I was at the Attorney General's office for 5.5 years. And it was, what an incredible experience. It is challenging, it is exhilarating, it is exhausting. And because the AG's office covers so many areas of the law representing the state of Hawaii in hugely important issues and cases, and a multitude of matters that are going on at any given time. And the way I like to describe it is this wonderful opportunity, and I'm a political science major at Oregon State, but this wonderful opportunity to truly work at the confluence of all three branches of government. You know, we were arguing cases in court. We were reviewing all of the bills that get submitted to the legislature each year. We were doing testimony. I was appearing in front of the legislature, testifying on a variety of matters, including the Hawaii Youth Correctional Facility that Martha Torney spoke about earlier. And we were providing advice and counsel to the executive branch, to the legislature. So it truly was a life-changing, career-changing experience. And I've always been thankful to Mark Bennett for giving me that opportunity, for thinking of me as somebody who could fulfill that role. And it really was something from which I learned quite a bit. So while I was there, it was the first time that I ever thought about applying to be a judge. I had never ever thought about that. You know, judges were judges, and I was an attorney. I mean, I just never thought about that possibility. But as vacancies started opening in the judiciary, folks were suggesting that I consider it. And, you know, that's perhaps a story that happens too often, but it is what helped me realize that maybe I should consider it. And especially when I had calls from judges started calling me and saying, "Hey, you should really think about this." And so I applied at the ICA. I was very thankful to become an associate judge back in 2010. I was in that role for about almost 8 years. And then when Craig Nakamura sadly left us as chief judge, he retired. We tried real hard to convince Judge Nakamura not to retire, but when he did retire, I decided to apply for the chief judge position. And again, not something I had ever aspired to or even thought of until that situation arose. So I've been the chief judge of the Intermediate Court of Appeals for about 5.5 years. And I just cannot say enough about the judges, the 7 judges that we have now. And thank you to the legislature for giving us that 7th judge recently. You know, and the 29 other members of that court, the staff attorneys, law clerks, and other staff members. It is a huge docket there, and challenging cases, and everybody works incredibly hard and also works really hard as a team at the ICA. So I'm ever thankful for that opportunity and for all of the wonderful people that I work with at the ICA. And so the question that has come up a number of times in my meetings is, okay, Lisa, so then why are you applying for the Hawaii Supreme Court then? And my answer to that is, when a vacancy occurred several years back, I thought about it. Some folks were encouraging me to apply, but at the time was just not right. I had only been chief judge for about 2 years when those vacancies opened, and I just wanted to stay at the ICA and try to do that job further. And there were a lot of things that we were working on at that time. So the timing wasn't right. I also had a family member who was sick at that time, and even more so, it made no sense to me. But now that these vacancies have come around, the time is right for me personally. I think the ICA is in a good place. We've got a lot of young, really great judges across the board, great judges, great staff, and I feel comfortable that I can contribute also at the Supreme Court level. So I think with my experience, my 20 years of civil litigation background, my experience at the Attorney General's office, and my 13 plus years at the ICA, I feel like I have the ability to really contribute at the Supreme Court, and I would like to do that. It's a wonderful court. I know the justices there. We substitute as justices, so I have that experience. When there are vacancies, I've sat with that court in some trying cases, so I've experienced a lot of what they do. And so ultimately, I hope that my experience and my background will be considered as being sufficient to really contribute in a significant way to the Hawaii Supreme Court. Thank you for your time, for the time.
Thank you very much. Members, questions? I will start out then. So the Hawaii State Constitution has an actual explicit privacy right that the federal Constitution does not have. And under current case law, does our constitutional privacy right include the right to an abortion?
So there's no, first of all, I guess what I should say up front is, as a sitting judge and as a potential justice on the Hawaii Supreme Court, I'm constrained by our ethical rules. I cannot comment specifically on how I would rule on matters that are either pending or impending in the courts. And so this issue of abortion, of course, is one of significant concern across the country and each state. So the way that I would address that is the Dobbs decision essentially put the issue back to the states, and it overruled Roe versus Wade and that federal constitutional right that had been in place for decades. So as we've seen across the country, state legislatures, the electorate are dealing with the issue in different ways. Constitutional amendments, specific in some states. In some states, legislatures are addressing it. And so here in Hawaii, yes, Senator Rhodes, we have an explicit right to privacy under Article 1, Section 6 of our Constitution. So right to privacy, it does not say specifically abortion. What I will say is that the Roe versus Wade decision was based on sort of an analysis of the federal Constitution that there was an implicit right to privacy. So in Hawaii, we have an express right to privacy. That is different. So what I will say is any analysis of the issue in Hawaii will be different than what the analysis was in Dobbs. The other thing is the right to privacy adopted in Article 1, Section 6 was adopted via the 1978 Constitutional Convention. And that was after Roe versus Wade was decided by the US Supreme Court. So Roe versus Wade
It
was.
was also after a statutory right to abortion here in Hawaii, too,
Right.
is that correct?
Right, and so recently, I believe it was last session, that the legislature amended the statute to make it clearer in terms of what the right to abortion is here in Hawaii. And Governor, it was adopted as Act 2, I believe, last session. And our constitutional provision actually, interestingly, says, that there is a right to privacy in Hawaii, and that the legislature shall act to address these rights. So, and when I went back and read the legislation from last session, and that's actually referenced in there, that the legislature was working pursuant to our constitutional provision.
Okay. Other questions, members? Senator Elefante.
Thank you, Judge Canosa, and congratulations on your appointment to the Supreme Court. Following up on Chair Rhodes' question, in terms of your look at cases that come before and bills that pass the legislature, how would you look at that in terms of, being impartial to your decisions and how you go about in terms of, what we pass? Would you uphold based on what you find from your findings and facts, or would you look at some of your personal experience and offer some of that?
So our role as judges, when we are applying statutory law, it's absolutely clear. Our role is to discern the intent of the legislature in passing this statute, whatever statute we may be looking at, or statutes often, and to apply them faithfully to the facts in the particular case before us. So, judges don't get to pick and choose what issues come before them. Cases are filed, they're litigated below, they come up to the appellate courts. The challenge is that the legislature cannot anticipate every type of fact pattern or fact situation in which a law they pass is going to be applied, or somebody's going to argue it should be applied. And so that's usually the challenge in discerning what the legislature's intent was in these particular circumstances. Now, the first thing we start with is the actual language of the statute itself, right? And if it's clear from that, that's wonderful. If it is clear from that, that case probably is not up at the appellate courts. Usually there's some argument on both sides as to how it should be interpreted. And so if there is any ambiguity, then we often, and it is very, very helpful to have reports, committee reports by the legislature that dive deeper into what the legislature intended in passing this bill. Now, it's fairly complicated sometimes because you go through a process where a bill may start as in a certain form, and amendments are made along the way. But anytime there is a committee report, and that will help us figure out the intent of the legislature much better for us in trying to interpret the law that we've passed.
Thank you for that. And the only other question I have is, being that you've been the ICA chief judge, some of those cases will come to the Supreme Court, and some cases you have worked on. If those cases were to come before you as a justice on the Supreme Court, how would you proceed?
So I would not be able to sit as a justice on any case that I have worked on at the ICA. Now, what I will say is I'm assigned as a merit panel member on a number of cases. As soon as the briefing is done, merit panel judges are assigned. That doesn't necessarily mean, though, that we've actively had a chance to work on them yet. So those cases probably that I have not touched, I've not had any material work involved, then those probably I think I will have an opportunity to sit on. These are things that, if confirmed, I fully intend to discuss at length with our Judicial Conduct Commission. They are able to help advise us as to where the proper line is, and I will be looking for guidance from them.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you,
Thank
Chair.
you, Senator.
Senator Vice Chair Gabbard.
Chief Judge Ginoza, congratulations again on your nomination. Having served as an ICA judge for many years, you've been in the system. Any changes that you would like to see in the justice system here in Hawaii, if any are needed? And if so, what's the biggest change for you?
Wow, that's a big question. You know, I think the hardest thing about being talk about the ICA, that's what I know best in terms of the system. You know, the hardest thing is
Excuse
that.
me, just 1 second. I'm sorry, I should have asked a long time ago. Can you guys in the back hear? Everybody hearing? Okay, good. Go ahead.
Okay. So the hardest thing on the ICA is that historic backlog that's been there ever since, you know, the system changed, the appellate system changed in 2006, where, you know, we're now the system we have, and a number of cases have been at the ICA. They're not the same cases, but the backlog, so to speak. And so the hardest part is try as we might, and we have an incredibly diligent group of folks there. It's just so hard to get into that backlog. Now, we got set back by COVID, as I think everybody did, and that's you know, I wish we were able to get further into that backlog. But the thing that will help is Senator Rhodes. I'm ever thankful that you put in the bill to add a 7th judge to the ICA. That once we saw that bill, we jumped on it, and you know, I testified personally at every single hearing. I, you know, with the help of our supervising staff attorney, did that testimony to give the background for why we were where we were. And with that 7th judge, I think we will have a fighting chance. And it's truly, I think it's just adding some staff and being able to, you know, go at it for a period of time. We have to prioritize certain cases where that involve custody of children. Those get resolved quite quickly. Termination of parental rights cases where criminal defendants are incarcerated. And then there's a whole range of statutory requirements that we have to address, those give priority to those cases. So the civil litigators out there know, and I used to be one, the cases that tend to be the oldest are those civil litigation cases that we try to get at as soon as possible. But you know, those are oftentimes too very complex, challenging cases. So you know, it's not really getting at, I think, the broader question that you asked, but for the ICA, that additional staff is just crucial, and it already has helped and made a difference. I'm sorry that I will be leaving if confirmed a vacancy. I will do everything I can to hope that we can fill that position as quickly as possible, if confirmed.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Other questions? Senator Law, go ahead.
I like that you played youth sports in my district. And this is going to be a little side note before I get to my question, but
Okay.
in our district, people are having to drive farther because there's less teams. One of the things that people are saying, I don't know how much validity there is to it, but we definitely see a lot of new faces in the community, is that rich people without kids are moving in, buying homes. So one of the biggest things we tried to push right here in this committee, matter of fact, was preventing foreigners from buying property. I would like to know, I know you said, you know, you can't say how you'd rule if a case came in, but there's no cases on this. If we were to pass something like this and it were to be challenged, can you elaborate where your stance kind of is on that? We've been told by the AG that it'd be unconstitutional, and she doesn't support even the other 14 states that have passed restrictions on foreigners buying ag lands.
So Senator, I apologize, but it is the type of issue that I really can't say how I would rule per se. Every case has to stand on its particular merits and the facts in that case and the particular language of a law that the legislature would pass. And so we are just absolutely required to, maintain the position that we will keep an open mind in every case and look at them fully. But so my first comment, though, but you kind of mentioned it, was that's something that at the Attorney General's office, when I was there, we would vet those bills and provide opinions to the legislature or testimony if the bill was being heard. And, so that's where I would start. I cannot say I've not seen, the AG's opinion. I probably wouldn't be able to comment on whether I agreed or not with it. I understand the concern. I live in the community. I see a lot of changes, and there is some restrictions certainly in our federal constitution in terms of restricting the right of citizens to move about. And so there are definitely issues that would have to be walked through, I think.
Could you answer the part, when they say unconstitutional and then others will say, hey, why do foreigners fall under the US Constitution? Could you elaborate on that, why that is?
So you're talking about, okay, you're talking about not necessarily from the mainland. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. Well, again, it depends on who the individuals are. Do they have a visa? Do they have visa status? Do they, when they're here, if they're buying property, do they have, to be a Hawaii citizen is to be physically present and have the intent to remain. It's a very broad language. So you'd have to, I think, work through the sort of the immigration status issues, perhaps, of the individuals, but I'm not particularly well versed in that area. I can't give you a particular answer on that.
Understood. If I could ask maybe two more questions,
Okay.
Chair. And again, I like the fact that you're from the Windward side. You're from Kailua. You're a local. And where we are, I guess we're kind of extreme on, when I say we, me and the people that I represent are kind of more extreme, where we want to stop foreigners from coming in because we see too much more coming in. I would like to get a sense, because this will, some people might criticize me for this, but because I had one before say, why'd you vote no to the Attorney General off of one topic? Well, because that topic was so, it was so impactful. And so that's where I'm at here with this. I understand that you could do the job. You're well qualified to do the job, but this is so important for my vote. I would like to get something out of you where I could understand where you stand, even if it's just a local point of view. I don't want to, break any ethics, but I want to get some personality out of you so I can get a sense of one of the 5 Supreme Court judges, how many are on, the side of, I don't want to put you in a hole of the locals.
So what I would say is that all of the justices live in Hawaii. Everybody sees the changes that are going on in our community. I can't speak for anyone else. But for me, I know how families are impacted. I know how families are impacted by the incredible price of homes. Who can I couldn't even buy my own home if I came out of law school today. How do people afford that? To me, it's almost like you have to have like generational buy-in to commit to buying a house in Hawaii. So I feel all of that because our families are affected as well. We have young people coming up in our family and folks trying to figure out how you're going to make it here. So, Kailua is a really interesting town too, because there's, sort of the folks, thankfully like me, we've been there a while, right? I grew up there. I lived 2 blocks away from where the house I grew up. My dad's still in the house where I grew up. And I'm very lucky that I became an adult when I did, because it was still affordable for me to buy that place. But now I just don't know. It's unbelievable to me. So I recognize that, the cases and the issues that come before my court at the ICA and the Hawaii Supreme Court, these are the big challenges in our community. And I speak to that. What we see in every case are the challenges in our community, and we have a role to play. We have to stay within our role. We're not going to decide policy and things like that, but we also do have to faithfully discharge our duties by applying the law as it exists. And now in constitutional law, the reason why they have an odd number of judges and justices on every case is because there's disagreement. They call it opinions, right? And so there can be varying opinions on what the law should be under a constitutional provision.
And that's what I kind of wanted to get in.
Yeah.
And we don't have any specific law in front of us, but I'm kind of looking for where you would lie. I know you're local, but I'm just wondering, if you're in this position and this comes up, if it's like TMT is the 30-meter telescope. That's like I'm not going to ask about that, but in this case, it's just like I'm just wondering if your tie to the culture, to the people, to your hana, to the land. You mentioned the house right down the road from you, right? Your life,
Absolutely, my neighborhood.
If that will leak into your position when you're in your position, and people who are in Kailua and the local people can count on you for, hey, she's gonna represent us, even though she's the justice. I don't know if I'm out of line by saying that kind of stuff, but I'm trying to squeeze.
This is the way I would say it, is that, and this is why this process is so important, as folks all along the way understand who we are, where we come from. I cannot say for sure how I would decide any particular case, but we bring with us all of our experience. Everybody, every judge, whether it's a family court judge trying to decide a divorce case or a Hawaii Supreme Court justice, we bring with us all of our experience. But Senator, I cannot say for sure I have to decide an issue this way because that's going to help this family in Kailua who's the party. I cannot say that at all. I have to faithfully discharge my duty in applying the particular law at issue to that facts in that case. And I will tell you, sometimes being on the ICA, I'm obligated to apply Supreme Court precedent. And that's my job. Everybody on the ICA understands that. We do that faithfully. And, would we possibly decide it differently in some situations? Perhaps. But we also have to faithfully discharge our duties. And if we don't, then I think we have a bigger problem.
Understood. Thank you for all your answers. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator.
Thanks, Jack.
Other questions? I have a couple more.
Yep.
So the question's been asked, what do you do if there's a law that's you don't really agree with or whatever? But there's sort of there's a difference between a law that you don't agree with, like, I don't know, I think we should all drive on the left side of the road instead of the right side of the road, where it's just arbitrary and you have to do it one way or the other. But then there are some laws or some constitutional provisions potentially where the soul of your being just says, this is wrong, I can't do this, I'm not going to intern a group of a certain ethnic group because they're under suspicion for being enemy agents or whatever. What do you do? And 5-10 years ago, I would have said, I never would have asked this question, but it seems to me like the political situation in the United States is kind of, we're in new territory from anything that I've seen in my 60 years of life. Mm-hmm. And it feels like the possibility of you getting a case in front of you where you just don't agree, just really fundamentally, morally, with what you probably, at the Supreme Court, of course, you have some, if it's a Hawaii question, then you're the last word. But,
right.
If there's something that comes down from the federal government where you're somehow, a case comes in front of you where you're asked to enforce something that you just really think is wrong.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem as unlikely as it used to. What's your thought process if that were to happen, and what do you think your options are?
Well, first of all, if it really sounds like it would then be a federal issue if we're in that situation. So the Hawaii Supreme Court would not be the last word on that. But because those questions would ultimately go up to, cases can get appealed from the Hawaii Supreme Court up to the US Supreme Court. I really haven't been in that situation, Senator, and I hear what you're saying. Given, changes in what's happening at different courts at different levels. But one thing I think of sometimes where, as an ICA judge, some of my colleagues have perhaps had a differing view of case law that they are required to apply. There have been concurrences because they have to have that outcome, but a very long explanation as to why that outcome is not correct, or why that outcome needs to be relooked at by the higher court. And that can be a very powerful thing because it gives those outside of the court the opportunity to, and you would imagine that if that you were in the situation you're talking about, beyond the court system, there are people who are very upset with whatever law is that we're having to address. So if there are opinions like that, that question the existing precedent, then that can be, I think, a powerful tool and helpful. Whether I would absolutely have to, I guess the hypothetical you're giving me is that I absolutely am constrained to apply this particular law in a certain way that is anathema to me.
Well, I mean, I suppose the other hypothetical that could also happen, it seems more unlikely to me because Hawaii is Hawaii, but if we passed if the people passed a constitutional amendment that did something that was just outrageous, and then you're bound by that constitution and you're the last word on how it's interpreted, but if it's well enough written, you're not going to have much leeway about what to do.
I believe in the democratic process. I mean, if it is a constitutional amendment duly, the electorate has voted to approve it, and then I would feel obligated to apply it faithfully.
Even if it's something that you think is just blatantly racist, or
I don't think we would get there. I
hope so. Not. It's a hypothetical. I'm not looking for this.
Questions.
Would there ever be a situation where you got to the point where you said, you know what, I just can't be part of the system that would do this to its citizens, and I quit?
It would take a lot for me to quit. I am not a quitter. I would look for every way to do justice. And you know who told me that? It's Judge King. I got a chance to see him right before he passed, not long before he passed. And the one thing he told me is to do justice. That's hard. I mean, because you don't know what that means. But in each situation, we all have our moral fiber. We all have our gut. I really don't think I would quit. I would try to find a way to do justice. What that is, I can't tell you.
Okay. All right. Other questions, members? Okay, if not, thank you so much. As you're probably all aware, we are not voting today. We technically don't have the bill in front of our committee because we haven't gone back into special session. So the vote will be on Monday, the 20th at 11:30 in this room. So, and with that, let's take let's see, what time is it? It's about, why don't we start with GM number 2 at 10 after 11, so short recess. And all right, everybody, let's go ahead and reconvene here. Let's go on to Governor's Message number 2 for Vladimir P. Devens, submitting for consideration and confirmation as an Associate Justice to the Hawaii Supreme Court for a term to expire in 10 years. First up on Mr. Devens is Blake Oshiro, Senior Advisor for the Governor. You're up, Blake. Sorry to be so informal all of a sudden.
Sorry.
Senior Advisor.
Yes, sorry. Blake Oshiro, Senior Advisor for the Governor. Thank you, Chair, Senator. We're here in strong support of GM number 2. We have our written testimony, so I will just summarize. So when it came to the highly qualified list that was before the Governor, most of the other applicants had a very, very strong judicial record. But what actually stood out when Governor talked to Mr. Devens was his extensive career in litigating a multitude and array of diverse issues and advocating for justice for all different types of clients. And I think for the Governor, he found that perspective would be extremely helpful in the Supreme Court as they're deciding some of these important issues. And so that really for him that diversity of experience was something that he thought would be worthwhile. So I'll be available for any questions.
Thank you. Next is Kalani Warner, State Director, United Public Workers. Yeah, there he is. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair, Committee. Kalani Warner, State Director for United Public Workers. I'm here in support of GM2, as you folks know, Vlad. Also, stand strong with my written statement, but also want to give a personal note to this matter. He's a longtime friend and a professional relationship. With my story, that everything I went through in my professional career, corrections, and the hardship I went through during the COVID, Vlad was actually my representative through that hard times. And he was always there for my family and upholding, making sure that they was always aware of what was going on with me while I was in the hospital. And that's something that holds strong with my family and shows true integrity as an individual. But as a union leader, you uphold what the contract of the letter of the law and the contract says for that. And that's what we've had as a working relationship with Vlad, an individual that holds up to the letter of the law. And I see with the two candidates before you today, a bright future for the state of Hawaii. And we stand strong with the support of Vlad. I thank you guys for your time.
Thanks very much. Next is Christian Fern, Executive Director for the University of Hawaii Professional Assembly. In support, okay. Also Tui Junior, President of Hawaii State Teachers Association. Good morning.
Hello, Chair Rhodes, Senators. Appreciate the time. Also Tui, President of Hawaii State Teachers Association. It's a privilege to add to the chorus of people speaking in strong support of Vlad. I would say don't let Vlad's demeanor, his local demeanor fool you. It is his Clark Kent persona hiding behind the Superman that he is in the legal realm. He's been outstanding as our legal counsel and has a vast knowledge of the law and its nuances. While his path here is not as traditional as other justices, it is not without merit, nor should it be disqualifying. He's down to earth, connected with our communities, and his legal aptitude makes him very deserving of your consent. And so on behalf of the Hawaii's public school teachers, we express our strong support for the unique voice that the shining public school graduate, Vladimir Devins, brings to Hawaii's highest court. Mahalo.
Thank you. Randy Pereira, Executive Director of Hawaii Government Employees Association.
PGA stands on our written testimony.
In support. Thank you. Andrea Eshelman, Deputy Executive Director for HSTA. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair, Chair, Senators. I'm here on behalf of the Hawaii State Teachers Association, as well as our Executive Director, Ann Mahi, who isn't able to be with us today. Just want to express our strong support for Mr. Devins. On a personal note, I do want to speak to also his mentorship and his time that he gives back to the community. His relationship that I've experienced in working with him on many issues, actually what led me to apply, and I'm now going to be graduating from Richardson School of Law. And I think it speaks to his ability to work with young people and others within the community to uphold the letter of the law. And it speaks to his personality and temperament and the fact that he recognizes that he has to give great consideration to the law. I have full confidence that his written decisions will be well thought out. But most importantly, I think, as you spoke earlier, the idea of honoring the unique and special place that is Hawaii. And I think he brings that to the table. And I, along with our President Tui, as well as our Executive Director, stand in strong support. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Colleen Hanabusa, former Senator, former Congresswoman. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to testify before you. As some of you may be aware, I sat where all of you sit for a total of 6 years, 4 years as the chair of the Judiciary Committee. So I do know that all of you take very seriously, especially this mandate, which is the advice consent portion of our constitutional duty. I am here, and it's very rare for me to be here. I am here because I found in Vlad Devins a very unique individual and someone who I believe fills a void within our court system. As some of you may or may not be aware of, the American Bar Association has 8 specific criteria which it lists in analyzing the qualifications of someone for a state judge, in particular the appellate judge. I've heard criticism that some feel that Vlad does not have judicial experience, but if you look at exactly what it is that the criteria is, it's judicial temperament. And I will share with you that when I sat where you sit, judicial temperament was the one criteria that drove me absolutely crazy, because you don't know what it really means. Except I've come to the conclusion that what it does is you know when you see it. Judicial temperament, according to the Bar Association, is really compassion. And it's the common sense. It's the ability to recognize that which is what people need to do. And let's not all forget, that is our duty. It is the people. The reason I support Vlad is because he represents someone who is very familiar with the Administrative Procedures Act, something that is kind of lacking in our courts. But if you look at the US Supreme Court, it's not lacking there. The question is, why is it today 4 of the 9 justices find their genesis in the DC Circuit Courts? And why is it the 2 renowned justices we lost, Justice Bader Ginsburg?
This pains me greatly, but you're out of time.
Oh, gee. Well, anyway, I do want to say that he fulfills a unique position and somebody who should, I'm asking that you all give serious consideration for, because it needs to be met by the court. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Jim Takatsuka. Good morning.
Morning. Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members. I'm a lifelong resident of Honolulu. Vlad has been my friend for over 50 years. I am not a lawyer, so I can't speak to Vlad's legal acumen. However, I do feel I can speak to his character, as he does possess qualities consistent with the judicial temperament of a Supreme Court justice. Even at the university, with the academic standing of Berkeley, I've not met anyone with as intellectually gifted as Vlad. And yet his encounters with peoples and situations, he always leads with a sincere humility and curiosity. He's the embodiment of what's often called the beginner's mindset. He always seeks to learn first, to understand first, before formulating any opinion or taking any action. In his interactions with others, Vlad's authenticity shines through. He puts on no airs, no pretenses, and doesn't prioritize the wealth, credentials, or social status of the people that he meets. He enjoys seeing people as they are, interested in what they do and what they think, and always respects them for who and what they are. After he graduated law school and passed the bar, I think you know, Vlad joined Honolulu Police Department. And when I teased him about the fact that he was passing up on a good salary, he replied that money wasn't important. He was more interested in learning how the law worked and was excited that HPD gave him the opportunity to see the law from a different perspective. His response was at once a little surprising and yet entirely consistent with the person I know. Vlad's professional educational credentials are impressive and in my mind qualify him for a seat on the bench, but I believe his humility, empathy, and earnest curiosity truly distinguish him as an outstanding candidate as an Associate Justice for the Supreme Court, the state of Hawaii. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Tanari Ma'afala, former State of Hawaii Organization of Police Officers President. Good morning.
Morning, boys. The honorable and distinguished members of the Judiciary Committee, Chair Rhodes, Vice Chair Gabbard, Senator Elefante, Senator Awa. I stand by my testimony with regards to Mr. Devon's professional accolades in academia, but I'm here to express a little bit on a personal note. And I'd be remiss if I not recognize some of those that are in the audience here that can attest to what I'm about to share. First and foremost, retired Sergeant John Haina, outside counsels that were counsels for Shopo, Mr. Richard Werderman Naivi, Mr. Kiani Alapa, and Mr. Will Otaki that are here today in support of Mr. Devons. If there is one word that I could use to preference my summary here in describing Mr. Devons, is servant. The biblical scripture that's found in the Gospel of John, chapter 15, verse 13, describes that best. For there is no greater love than this, than to lay down one's life for a friend. I met Vlad early in my career as a police officer in the Hawai'i Crime Reduction Unit. There we handled one of the biggest notable cases in Hawaii, of which liquid crystal meth was discovered, the Frank Moon case, the Second Chance Rehabilitation organization that used that as a cover. That was a major case that we worked on together. Shortly thereafter, he pursued his career as an attorney and as a partner with Weiner, Meheula, and Devins. And yet we connected again when I decided to run for Shopo in representing the police officers. There I connected with Vlad again to get his legal expert and his advice, of which he gladly did. So continuing to serve, not only as a police officer at his left, and he's till today. Not many people know that he's still a reserve officer, a volunteer for more than 30 years. And I'm sure that'll become a decision where he might have to recuse that position and continue as, again, hopefully with your support, as the next Associate Justice of the Hawaii Supreme Court. At Shopo, he's litigated many of our cases, from the simple grievances of overtime abuse and the like, and termination to the extent that he went to district court, the Intermediate Court of Appeals, up to the Supreme Court. So again, as many of the testifiers that have come here before you today.
Sorry to interrupt. That's the end of your time.
Oh, thank you, sir. I really appreciate it. And again, I strongly support Mr. Devins in his appointment as an Associate Justice to the Hawaii Supreme Court. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Christian West, President of ILWU Local 142. Good morning.
Good morning, Judiciary Committee, Chair. Thank you for giving me the time to come here and testify in support of Vladimir Devins. My name is Chris West. I'm the President of International Longshore Warehouse Union. ILW Local 142. We represent 16,000 members across the state, 70 of which stand in the hall, also in support of Mr. Devins for this position. Hawaii has a deep history of inequality, oppression, subjugation of the working class, and the ILW has stood steadfast against these injustices. Though we live under better conditions today, thanks to the efforts of many who fought before us, inequalities remain. The attacks on the working class continue still today. The ILW's motto is an injury to one is an injury to all. Vladimir Devins has dedicated his legal career to and has a proven track record of advocating for equality and fighting for those in need of protection. The ILW is committed to expressing strong support for Mr. Devins in light of ILW's principles to fight for a better life for the people, the communities in which we live. His passion for the working class is evident in all he does and perfectly aligns with the mission of the ILW, fighting for the people. The ILW also has a proud history with the Hawaii Supreme Court, where Justice Edward Nakamura served and built a legacy as one of our greatest Hawaii Supreme Court justices. He served during a much harder time for working class and dedicated his career to improving their lives and our state in general, including improving and establishing healthcare reform, temporary disability insurance, collective bargaining rights. As daunting as the task as it seems, Vladimir Devins is the perfect candidate to ensure Justice Nakamura's fight for Hawaii's working class. Vlad Devins, he's one of us. He's a local boy. He's a son of this state that we all love, an advocate for our way of life, and has been a protector of Hawaii's working class. These are the reasons that we are here today.
Your time is
in support
expired.
of Vladimir Devins. Appreciate you guys' time.
Thank you. Let's see. Next up, we have Bobby Lee, President of Firefighters.
Good morning, Chair Rhodes, Vice Chair Gabbard, and committee members. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Bobby Lee, President of the Hawaii Firefighters Association. I hope you have my testimony. If not, for sure, we'll get it to you. I'm here in support of Mr. Vlad Devins. He's been a good friend. I've known him for over 15 plus years. I'm not going to read the testimony, but I just want to give a few personal feelings. You know, this is a man with great integrity, with a very, very high moral compass. He has a great respect for the law, and you know, he is an individual that is very, very much well-grounded, doesn't shoot from the hip, really thinks hard before he gives any kind of advice. He's an individual with great intellect, with a high degree of common sense, which in today's world, a lot of times is hard to find people that have both attributes. Vlad is all about doing the right thing. And that's kind of what we do as firefighters. We try to make decisions all based on the right thing. I am proud to be here advocating for him. But at the same time, I have to tell you that this is nothing short of basically shooting myself in the foot. We lost our attorney, our arbitration attorney for that supported firefighters for the last 50 or so years. And he retired. He didn't die, he retired. And so, Vlad had agreed to help us, and we're looking forward to having him with us on our team. So, as much as I love and respect this man, it's sore, losing him for us in that capacity. What becomes the firefighters' loss.
Thanks very much.
Hopefully will be the people of Hawaii's gain. Thank you very much for your time.
Next, we have Tina Yamaki, President of Retail Merchants of Hawaii, on Zoom, I believe.
Not present on Zoom, Chair.
Not present. In support. Next, we have Robert Cavaco, President, testifying for Shopo.
Not present on Zoom either, Chair.
Also in support. Stanley Roig. Also, I think on Zoom. There you are.
I'm present.
Good morning. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here to testify in favor of Paul Devon's son. His father and I were buddies back when I was in the legislature and beyond. And he talked about his son, and his son is the embodiment of what his father and I discussed we wanted for Hawaii. And when I was in the legislature, I had the good fortune to vote on the law school. The only difference between the law school and what I wanted is I wanted the law school downtown at the Supreme Court building. But the votes weren't there in the committee to do that. So it ended up in the Manoa, down in the where it used to be a quarry. And that's where it ended up. But the idea of the law school is what I see in Vladimir Devon, and that is it's a local boy law school. And he has local attitudes, same like I do. I was born and raised in Manoa during the territory days. I had to go to law school in the mainland because Hawaii didn't have one. So when we went to the legislature, we made a law school for our locals. And he's a product of that concept. Even though he might have gone to law school in mainland, he has the attitude of a local boy. And that's what we want on the court. And that's what I want on the court. And I want to say I'm very proud that I lasted long enough, 58 years, trial work, that I was to be here to talk in his favor.
Thank you very much.
You'll tell your father.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Let's see, we got next is retired Judge Eden Elizabeth Hifo. Did you want to testify? Good morning again.
Good morning to all of you, and thank you very much for entertaining this really important series of people. And I join those who are strongly in favor of Vlad Demets as this as a Hawaii Supreme Court justice. I've known him for years, and that is because when I was in the circuit court, he had his first jury trial. And so I happened to preside over that. And at that time, it was already clear to me that he had the intelligence, the ability to interact with both jurors and very, very well entertaining and answering questions about the law. And he, of course, is a people person, and that showed up when the jury verdict was in his favor. He is a person, as you've already heard from so many others, who cares about the many institutions within our state. And you just heard the gentleman speaking about his fabulous educational, not only commitments, but the resume that you have, I think it's on the last page, where Cal Berkeley gave him fabulous reviews. And so he's got the smarts, but he's got the heart. And all of that matters tremendously for a person of his age, attitude, and the experience that he has, not to mention his own dad, who's now a spirit himself. So I urge you to give us Vlad Devins as a justice of the Hawaii Supreme Court. And thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. That's everyone that I have that's signed up for Zoom or in person except for HSBA. Is anyone else wishing to testify in person? Yeah, right here in front first, and we'll go from there. Good morning.
Morning, Chairman Rhodes and the other members of the committee. My name is Arthur Park. I'm a practiced law in Hawaii for over 45 years and a former member of the Judicial Selection Commission. And as a result of that, I've always been on the lookout for people who are really qualified to serve as on the court. One of the things I look for was a varied background, which is very rare. I'm telling you right now, because most of the candidates have a unidimensional background, and you wonder, like, if they're coming from criminal law, are they going to do well in civil or even civil, doing criminal? And the few that I've seen that have varied backgrounds, like Vlad, have hit the ground running and they've done really well. And that's what I expect Vlad to do on this Supreme Court. You know, when I was in law school, I was proud that the leading case in my property class textbook was a Hawaii Supreme Court decision. And it was about the, I'm looking at the time here, it's a consumer case regarding, you know, renters having a habitable place to live, okay? So, but many of the Hawaii Supreme Court decisions have been are cited across the country. So Vlad's background, I'm sure, is going to add tremendously to the court's, you know, depth and breadth. So I would strongly urge the committee to approve his nomination.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Rivera, you wanted to say something? Yep, come on up. Morning again.
Good morning again. Thank you, everyone. Again, I like with Judge Ganoza, I got to know Vlad in the 90s when we were on opposite sides of cases. I was mostly doing insurance defense work, and Vlad, I believe, was mostly doing personal injury work. So we would have big cases together, and we would have very small cases together. But one thing I always respected about him, it would be, you know, a case that's worth, if it goes my way, the plaintiff will get 10 grand, and if it goes Vlad's client's way, it'd be 30 grand. It wouldn't be the biggest case in the world, but he had a ton of integrity and knew that for that person, for that relatively minor to the rest of us, perhaps, personal injury case, he fought like the devil on all of this stuff for his client. He was the most thorough attorney I would ever go against. And I would tell clients, half of these plaintiffs' attorneys are asleep at the wheel when they're taking your deposition. It was never the case with him. And I'd say, you need to pay attention. This guy is very good. He is very thorough, and he took every case extremely seriously. And a great guy and a great litigant. We had a case once, we're in the middle of a pretty contentious, heavy case, and my dad passed away, and he was very gracious about extending deadlines. I obviously will never forget it, and I appreciate it. Very fair to me, very fair to everyone that I've seen him encounter. I couldn't recommend him enough. Very smart guy, and I strongly support him. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to testify? Sure, Ms. Lee. Good morning.
Aloha. Chair, Vice Chair, and Judiciary Committee. Angela Melody Young, testifying in strong support of the nominee Devins, who has served as a member on the disciplinary board of the Hawaii Supreme Court and a director for Crime Stoppers. I'm not an expert on law like everyone else, but as a safety coordinator of a neighborhood security watch, a grassroots initiative of the Honolulu Police Department, a version of Weed and Seed brought over to Hawaii by the city's prosecuting attorney, and as a recently elected board member of Neighborhood Board Number 15, we witness and hear a lot of things. Standing in the gap as a community member and as a safety advocate, and I'm testifying to support the nominee judge to hear juvenile, civil, or criminal cases, to apply in good faith accurate interpretation of the law, and to execute action. The nominee judge practices in child sex abuse law. Child sex abuse is a national issue as it involves online child pornography and adolescent rape. In August 2023, the news released data from the FBI about operations cross-country to deal with sex crimes against children. 6 children were found in Hawaii. Project Safe Childhood is a national-wide strategy led by the Department of Justice to combat sex crimes against children. Then Congress passed the PROTECT Act, Providing Resources, Officers, and Technology to Eradicate Cyber Threats Act of 2008. As mandated by the Act, Department of Justice, working with the National Drug Intelligence Center, completed a first-of-its-kind threat assessment, which shows a disturbing trend of 1, child pornography, 2, online enticement of children, and 3, child sex tourism, people from around the world who travel to tourist destinations to have sex with children. In 2016, the department submitted a second national strategy for child exploitation, prevention, and interdiction to Congress. The strategy describes in detail the efforts of law enforcement partners to find, prosecute, and punish those who prey on the nation's children. If this issue is a nationwide concern to impact Hawaii, I'm very thankful to the nominee judge to serve in Hawaii Supreme Court, who is well practiced in this subject matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to testify in person or online? Okay, members, any questions for the testifiers to this point? Okay, seeing none, Hawaii State Bar Association. Good morning again.
Good morning again. The HSBA was in a unique position with respect to the nomination of Mr. Devins because he is a longtime member and valuable member of our board. He's not the first director of the HSBA to be nominated to the judiciary, and he won't be the last. But in such cases, we're very careful to make sure that we apply and comply with our conflict of interest rules. So I just want to state that up front. So before we considered his nomination, we made sure that those members, and there were 2 who had submitted letters in support of his nomination to the governor or other authorities, recused themselves from the consideration. But all the other board members, we considered the comments from our HSBA membership as a whole, and concluded, as stated in our written testimony, that Mr. Devins is qualified to serve as an Associate Justice of the Hawaii Supreme Court. He meets all the criteria that I had listed with respect to Chief Judge Ganoza. He's been a very valuable member of our board. I feel like I'm shooting myself in the foot because we're losing him, hopefully, to the Hawaii Supreme Court, but he will be a credit there. His vast experience in private practice, his quasi-judicial role on the Land Use Commission, his work with the Office of Disciplinary Counsel, just provide a great experience and that will be valuable for a member of our Supreme Court. So we support Mr. Devins.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any questions for Ms. Griswold? I do have a couple questions. So Mr. Devens did not participate in, I mean, I guess it's obvious that he didn't participate in his own consideration, but
Well,
he did.
he was interviewed, so he was there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, he wasn't interviewing himself, okay?
No,
Okay.
no,
But
no.
for the other judge, for the other potential justice, Judge Ganoza, he wasn't involved with
He
that one.
did not
either.
participate in that meeting
Okay.
either.
The other question I had was in terms of the ABA standards, and I think Congresswoman Hanabusa talked about this a little bit. Does the ABA view an attorney who's never been on the bench, do they see that as a negative or a positive, or it's just a wash? It just depends on what the person has done.
I will tell you, I can't speak for the ABA. I don't know
Okay,
firsthand,
but
but
you guys use their
we use
basic
their
template, right?
criteria.
Okay.
We use their criteria. But we use their criteria, but it's our own criteria, and we
Okay.
apply it.
All right. So same question for you then.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't view prior judicial experience as an absolute requirement for the appellate court, whether
Okay.
it's the ICA or the Supreme Court.
But did you view it as a positive or a negative, or it's just?
I think overall, our board viewed it as a positive. We thought it was good to have someone who's been in private practice for all these years to be on an appellate court, because there are so many kind of practical issues that private practitioners deal with that longtime judges that have not been in private practice for a while may not appreciate.
So I guess what I was really asking was, but the procedure itself doesn't give weight to prior judicial experience. Or is it a situation where the rest of his resume was so good that it overwhelmed the fact that he didn't have any judicial experience? Or
I guess
I'm
I
gonna say
don't.
any.
I want to
LUC
say.
is almost judicial, but
I mean, I think we give weight to both. I think if you've been a good judge and have a good judicial record or good positive reviews as a judge, that's going to weigh in your favor. It could also weigh against you if
Okay,
the reviews
all right.
aren't as good.
Fair enough. Okay. All right. Thank you. Other questions, members? For Ms. Griswold? Okay. Thanks so much. Mr. Devens, come on up for your closing statement. I mean, opening statement. Sorry. Good morning.
Morning. Morning to you all, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, Senator Wah, Senator Lafonte. First of all, thank you for all the time that you folks have invested into this process. It's been a long process for all of us, and I thank you for affording me the time to be here today. I know you have a lot of information on my background, and I just wanted to highlight a few things, if I may. I was born and raised on this island, and I grew up in the area of Upper Aina, which is called Wailupi. And I grew up in that area, and then my family moved one valley over to New Valley, but that's the area where I grew up. I spent most of my childhood down in the water, down in Aina and New Valley, surfing, diving, fishing, throw net, lay net, pai. That's how I grew up. And I had a really good childhood at the time. The area wasn't very crowded. We had the place to ourselves. And I had a really enjoyable time, and I was very fortunate to have been raised that way. I also was educated in my community. I attended the Wailupi Elementary, Aina Elementary, New Valley Intermediate, and graduated from Kalani High School. The one thing with my parents is that they never made anything easy for me. And I think it's because they had their own struggles in life. My dad really came from nothing, never had very much. He couldn't get an education, so he joined the Army at age 17. He wasn't even an adult. An uncle had to come and vouch for him so he could get into the service. He served this country and then used his military benefits to get an education, and ended up getting a law degree from Columbia Law School in New York. My mother was another one that had a very strong work ethic, very disciplined. She immigrated from Japan. She came to the US shortly after the war, which obviously wasn't a popular time to be Japanese, to be coming to the US. She experienced a lot of discrimination against her, but she was really a fearless woman, a very strong woman. And she educated herself here in the US and ended up auditioning, being accepted at Juilliard School of Music, which I later came to understand and appreciate is one of the finest music conservatories in the country, if not the world. But for me growing up, I think they wanted me to feel that struggle and not take anything for granted. So you want a new surfboard? The answer is you go work. You want to go to school? You go pull student loans. And so that's what I did. Paid every penny back, but that's how I educated myself as well. I was very fortunate to get into the University of California at Berkeley. I got my undergraduate degree from there, majored in economics. I graduated with high honors, magna cum laude, and I received Phi Beta Kappa honors as well. I was inducted into UC Berkeley's Economic Honor Society. It took a tremendous amount of work. I worked very hard. I've been very fortunate to be blessed with that work ethic from my parents. My mom once said that, you know, being able to work hard is a talent in and of itself. I don't know if that's true, but that's all the talent I have. And it has served me well up to this point in time. I also got my law degree from UC Berkeley as well, and I was very fortunate to be educated there. It's a fine institution. It was a very difficult school to get into and still is today. As far as my practice is concerned, you know, I've been licensed here in the state of Hawaii for 35 years now. And I've been very fortunate and blessed in terms of the type of practice that I've had. As mentioned earlier, most times my colleagues, they enter into the practice of law and go into a certain area, and that's kind of where they stay for the next 25, 30 years. I've been very blessed in the sense that I've been able to practice in so many different areas of the law. I've done land development, I've done construction, I've done permitting, I've done uniform information practices, the proclamations that involve emergency powers for both the governor and the mayor. I've done asbestos defense, plaintiff defense work, wrongful death, premise liability, products liability, child abuse, sexual abuse, workplace violence, defamation. I've also have a lot of experience in administrative law, Chapter 89, collective bargaining, grievances, duty of fair representation, prohibited practice complaints. The court is a high court that has that reviews every category of cases. Administrative agencies and administrative appeals make up a large bulk of those appeals. And I've been very fortunate to have a lot of experience in that area as well. I've practiced before the Hawaii Labor Relations Board, Zoning Board of Appeals, Building Board of Appeals, Board of Land and Natural Resources, the Labor and Industrials Appeals Board. I've done countless administrative hearings before the Disability Compensation Division. Early on in my career, I did some family law. I also did some landlord-tenant. I still volunteer sometime at the Access to Justice Center, which is providing free legal advice to those that cannot afford an attorney, and many of those cases involve landlord-tenant. So I brush up on that area, although it's not my practice that I have as part of my law firm. I'm very proud of the law firm that I have. Kane Alapa is one of my partners. He's from this community. He's from Ka'awa. He was educated at University of Hawaii, Richardson Law School. I've been very blessed to have him as part of my legal team. The other facet of my experience is that I've had 33 years of experience in criminal law and criminal procedure. I've effected multiple felony arrests during my career. I've drafted and executed search warrants. I've conferred with judges on warrants. I've conferred with the prosecutors on cases. I've taught use of force, laws of arrest, and report writing to younger officers. And I've been involved as a volunteer reserve officer up to this point in time. Obviously, the Senate willing would have to give up that position, but that's always been my own personal community service that I've really enjoyed. I've also served on the Crime Stoppers Board for, I think, about a decade now. That also ties into the work that we do in law enforcement and trying to help protect this community. But in a nutshell, that's the experiences that I've had. I'm very grateful to have had those experiences. And I hope that that diversity of the practice, the diversity of the areas that I've practiced in will strengthen the deliberation process at the High Court and hopefully enhance the overall effectiveness. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Members, questions? Well, I'll start out again. You heard my line of questioning on abortion with Judge Ganoza. It's as you're aware, the Hawaii Constitution has an explicit right to privacy that the federal Constitution does not have. Do you view, is the case law to this point on abortion in Hawaii, does that does that case law indicate that the abortion is part of the right of privacy?
You know, I have to exercise the same cautions that Chief Judge Ginoza did because of the constraints of the Code of Judicial Conduct. But let me say this: the privacy right under our Constitution is considered a fundamental right, and the Constitution has given the obligation to implement the privacy rights to this body. There's substantial deference that must be given to what this body does when it passes laws. I know that Act 2 was passed, I believe it was this last legislative session in response to the Dobbs case. I respect what the legislature does. You also have to apply the constitutional interpretation rules, and I think that should be strictly applied when you look at legislation. And that includes the presumption of constitutionality, and that if someone is challenging the constitutionality, that they have a high bar, and they have to show beyond a reasonable doubt that something may be unconstitutional. And that's how I would apply, and that's how I would answer that question.
Okay. Other questions, members? Yeah, go ahead, Senator Elefante.
Thank you. Mr. Devins, congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you.
Obviously, by your background, you have a lot of expertise in different areas of law. I know former Congresswoman, alluded to, her testimony on someone may not having judicial experience. But I also like to think, on the other hand, someone that doesn't have judicial experience might make a great addition to our highest court. So what would you bring in terms of your private practice and years of experience in litigation to this court?
My own perspective has always been that I thought the best trial judges and appellate judges were those that had a lot of trial experience. Because they understand all the nuances that go on in a trial. For all the trials that I've done, I've always handled my own appeals. I was not working at a law firm where you have the trial attorneys, they're done with the trial, they hand the case off to an appellate section. I was the appellate section, and I wouldn't have done it any differently, even if I had an appellate section, because I understand exactly what happened in the trial. And I think it's much more effective when you handle the appeal, the briefs, and the oral argument. So I've always handled my own appellate briefings and my oral arguments. One thing that always stuck in my mind when I had an argument before the ICA, this was a long time ago, and I won't name the judge, but the judge couldn't understand how I applied an evidentiary rule to get part of a report in, but then I was able to block the other report from coming in. In fact, I think it was a trial that I had with Judge Hefel. And the judge just said, it's part of the same report, and just couldn't understand how the rule was applied. And I later learned because the judge really didn't have a lot of trial experience and just didn't quite grasp it. And that was just the situation, what it was. Finally, one of the other judges had to lean over to explain what I had done. And that always stuck in my mind because it was just the fact that the person didn't have that trial experience, which I think counts for a lot. When we say we're trial attorneys, litigators, we're in the trenches. We're the guys carrying that shovel and pick, and we're doing all the laboring work. When you go up on appeal, we do all the briefing. It's not the trial judge that does the briefing. They're not involved in the appellate process at all. So it's us that has to do the analysis, point out the errors, comb through the record, and present all of that. And I've always enjoyed that work. It's not easy work. It's very detailed work, but it's certainly very gratifying.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Members, other questions? Senator Vice Chair Gabbard.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Mr. Devins, the same question I had for Chief Judge Ginoza. Changes in the judicial system, big picture, what do you see?
Well, I'll tell you from a practitioner's point of view, it's that backlog of appeals. I know the judges up there, and they're all hardworking. They're very smart. They're very diligent. I don't know what the issue is up there. If we got to bring more judges up, I know that you folks added one to the ICA. COVID, I'm sure, added to that problem, but we cannot have a backlog of 5 to 6 years, is what I'm told it is now. The Supreme Court, I think it's 6 months. I don't know if the answer is bringing more judges on or what it is, but I have a colleague that told me the other day where he had a client whose appeal has been pending for 2 years, and then she died. So she never had the peace of mind of knowing how her appeal was resolved. And to me, the old adage, justice delayed is justice denied, holds true. And to me, it's just something that has to be addressed and addressed sooner rather than later, in my personal opinion.
Thank you, thank you, Chair.
Other questions? Senator Wah.
Seeing as we're all going in order with what we asked in the previous hearing, you're as local as it gets. I'm happy to see your nomination, see the people who support you. I've heard nothing but good things. I want to know your take. You know, you're going to be up there. I want to know what our Supreme Court Justice thinks about the constitutionality of preventing foreigners from buying property here.
Yeah, in all due respect, Senator, well, you know, I have the same constraints, but let me just say this, you know, friends that I grew up with to this day don't own a home. They work hard, they struggle every day. I understand the struggle that goes on in not having your own place, to continue to be renting as older at the age that I'm at and still having that struggle. I'd have to obviously look at the constitutionality of it. I think if you look at some of the articles that talk about, you had a great question on what if they're not really from here, right? They're immigrants. And I believe that the view is, at least from some, is that the Constitution still applies to them, both the protections and everything else that goes along with that. So obviously, if that is the case, then we would have to look at the constitutionality of such a law, and it would apply strictly the same constitutional interpretation rules that I talked about earlier. The presumption of constitutionality, the high burden that someone would have to meet to challenge the constitutionality of it. But I certainly respect and am aware and fully understand the problem that we have in this community.
Let me ask, not a ruling, just a follow-up. Is it time for something like this to come up where you guys have to take opinion on it, this topic?
Well, if the issue comes up, we certainly would have no choice, but would have to decide on it.
In your personal opinion, do you think the time is now, seeing that kids and Ohana and cultures is moving away? I don't know if you can even answer that, but personally.
Well, I'll tell you what, I have 3 daughters of my own. I hope they move home and they can't afford to come home, because they're already talking about moving to the mainland. I don't want them living in Las Vegas only because of the cost of living makes it able to live there. You know, want them home, they want to come home, but whether they can, certainly an issue that I deal with personally myself, but my wife and I.
It's good to know you're dealing with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions, members? I got a couple more then. As a former police officer, I'm sure you've witnessed situations where the person committing a crime or allegedly committing a crime, you're investigating for a crime, has, even as a layperson, it's fairly obvious that they have some sort of mental illness. What you know, starting from the street level on up, what's your view towards how the system should deal with those with severe mental illnesses?
Well, they obviously, you know, need professional help from many of them. You know, sometimes it's self-inflicted, and that's a different story. But, you know, many of them are put in a situation where they had no control over the circumstances that they were put in. Officers, you know, they're not the professionals for substance abuse and mental health, so it's very difficult for them to deal with that issue. I thought at one time the department had professionals on call that we could call to the scene to give the appropriate professional counseling and guidance, and to get them into the treatment facilities that may have been available. It's a societal issue, obviously. I don't have the answers to it, but I know that continuing to arrest and rearrest and going to the judiciary revolving door has not been the answer up to this point in time, and that's my personal view. But more has to be done. Exactly what that is, I know that you folks are always trying, and if we had the answer, it would have been done already. But it's a very difficult issue in my mind that we all have to deal with.
Okay. Similar question to what I asked Judge Ganoza about, you know, what if you're put in a situation where the people of Hawaii put a constitutional amendment out there that you just think is morally repugnant and you really, really don't want to enforce it? What do you do?
Well, we would have to, you're talking about from the perspective of an appellate court.
Yes, yeah.
Well, you'd have to still deal with the issue. I mean, you can't run away from it, and you have to apply the same interpretation principles that we're bound to apply, that you would be as a judge, and you would have to do it in the normal course. And the difficulty is that, you know, we're required and we have to have the discipline to set aside our own feelings. And, if you don't have that discipline, then you really have no business applying for this job. But you may agree or disagree with a law, but if it passes all the tests and the muster, then you have to uphold it. That's what you swear to do. So
Okay, I'm talking about the extreme examples though. Say out of some fluke, and I don't anticipate it happening, at least in Hawaii anytime soon, but say the Hawaii voters passed a constitutional amendment that said that you're allowed to round up a group of a certain ethnic group and hold them because they're enemies of the state. Is that, what do you do in that situation? I know it sounds far-fetched, but I'm not sure it is as far-fetched as I used to think it was.
Well, first of all, I don't know if that'd be constitutional. You'd have to.
No,
ask
if
that
we actually passed a
first.
constitutional amendment that said that.
Yeah. Well, I think earlier it asked, would you, you quit and walk away? I'll tell you right now, I've never quit anything in my life. You got to put me down on the ground if you think I'm going to walk away from something. So I would deal with it, and I would deal with it appropriately. But I don't know if I'd walk away from the job and say that's it and throw the towel in. That's just not what I'm about.
Okay, fair enough. Other questions, members? All right, let me check. I think I have more. So let's get down into legal weeds for a minute, and this is always dangerous because you're only supposed to ask questions that you know the answers to. You wrote you and a couple of other people co-authored an article on Act 300 cases, I believe, empty chair defense where people settle out. In my understanding, or I'm a little confused on that. So my understanding is that the empty chair defense is still alive and well in certain circumstances. Is that correct? Even if someone's settled. So you're supposed to, once this person is settled, I forget which HRS 663 something or other. Once they've settled, then you're not supposed to be able to blame them for anything. Does that still happen?
Well, that's what the original intent, as I believe Act 300 was, and it was to help facilitate piecemeal settlements. Before, we couldn't do piecemeal settlements because if we settled one out, the other guy went to trial, they would blame that empty chair now, and they weren't there to defend themselves, and that really was an obstacle to settling. And we want to settle cases and get rid of them, get them out of the judiciary, get them out of the court system. And so Act 300 was passed for that particular purpose, but it went up on appeal, and the ICA gave a different interpretation to it. So now the empty chair is back in play.
Okay, and pretty much all across the board, or there are certain situations where it still doesn't?
Pretty much across the board, as I understand it.
Okay. All right, thank you. Other questions, members? If not, thank you very much, everyone, for being here today.
Thank you, sir.
And as I mentioned before, the Judiciary Committee will not be voting on either of the nominations until Monday, November 20, 11:30 a.m. in this room 016. We are technically recess, I guess. So no, we're adjourned. We're adjourned.